Okay, welcome everyone to the Infrastructure Committee. Just to let members know, in the public gallery, they are welcome to use mobile devices as long as they are set on the appropriate mode. Today we are looking at the following. We're going to take some oral evidence from DVA Northern Ireland, providing a performance update against business plan objectives on its annual report and accounts 24-25. Then in closed session, we will consider some legal advice from the Assembly's Legal Services on the scope of the Committee's examination of the A5 Western Transport Corridor project in light of live proceedings. We will consider a written briefing from the Assembly's RAISE on an environmental scan of the Department's infrastructure. That will also be in closed session, and we will consider the Committee's strategic priorities for the remainder of this mandate. And if members are content, we will proceed through the agenda. And the first item is apologies, and we have one from Peter. Do we have any other apologies? No. Okay. Note to Peter, who really shouldn't be watching as he's on paternity leave. Peter, as far as I'm aware, had a baby son very recently. No name fed to me yet, unless anyone has any intel on that. I'm looking at Andrew in particular.
Couldn't possibly comment.
Couldn't possibly comment, which is code for those watching that he knows what it is but isn't allowed to release it, perhaps. Perhaps we could get a card for Peter and his wife to congratulate them on the birth of their son, and I think that'd be great. We'll move on to declarations of interests. Do any members have any interest to declare in relation to today's business? Or
just member of the PAC.
Stephen, member of PAC. Cahill, member of PAC as well. Okay. Chairperson's business. I'm cognizant of the fact that there was obviously significant flooding in Newcastle over the weekend. Look, I'm not going to particularly dwell on that, but I did want to give people the opportunity if they wanted to raise any issues around that. The response, to be fair, from DFI looked pretty good. There were sandbags in place. There may be more significant medium-term issues around that flooding, but I felt it would be appropriate if anyone had any views on that or any actions to give committee members the opportunity to raise those. So.
Thank you, Chair. No, I suppose, I'll pass comment on this during member statements. I think, yes, great, much thanks must go to all the agencies involved. I think, like all these things, you sort of move from the immediate aftermath and sort of settles. Funny, I was in conversation with a resident of Sunningdale only this morning. So, as you can imagine, there's still quite a number of questions. Yeah. And I suppose, it would be good to see how this committee can maybe assist in that. But again, it just making the wider point. Coming to this in strategic priorities maybe at some stage, but we are seeing more and more incidences of a month load of rain in a matter of hours, and just how with the best intention in the world, not all infrastructure can cope with that, and it's just how we mitigate, adapt, and such like. But yes, I do know that, and I think that the Minister, to be fair to the Minister, Kimmins, was also in contact with the Flood Resilience Group over the weekend in anticipation of that. But like all these things, just the residents, we like to be heard, and we'll leave it at that for the meantime, I think.
Okay, no, that's fine, Andrew. Any other members have any comments on that? Okay, that's fine. In that case, we will go on to draft minutes, and these are at page 2 of the table pack. These are draft minutes for our meeting of October the 15th. Just to let members know, there's a slight amendment to the draft minutes circulated in the main pack. But I still need the committee's agreement to sign off the minutes. Our committee agreed? Agreed. Okay, I will do that. Okay. Matters rising. Did any members have any matters they wish to raise from the previous meeting? No. Okay. Core then starts at page 22 with the core memo, and I'm going to take members to page 162 of the pack, and it's core from the Construction Employers Federation providing a position paper on the Northern Ireland water wastewater crisis. Their words, not mine. And I'm cognizant that this committee probably has received a lot of evidence around this issue. However, I haven't been here, and some of the members may not also have been here to hear all that. It's clear that in the absence of required funding, NIW's ability to fulfil its programme of works that aligns to the PC 21, the Price Control 21, is fairly limited. At our last meeting, we agreed to seek written evidence from Build Homes NI on similar related issues. CEF have been invited to provide evidence on the bill, and we will hear from them on that. The question, just for members, is whether or not, based on the evidence that CEF have provided at 162, would we like to have them in for oral evidence, and if so, we will program that into the forward work program. Happy to hear views on that if there are any.
I think, Chair. I think we know the housing crisis. This is an organisation that builds houses along with the other build homes. I think it would be remiss not to maybe have them in. But again, I'm not sure what other opinions of the committee are.
Thank you, Andrew. Cahill?
Yes, I don't mind. I think they're representative of a number of people. Is that right? Rather than just because we had the debate about it inviting individuals, but I think they're representative of a number. But so I mean, I don't mind if we can facilitate that. I just don't want to get into individual, but I think in this case there's an opportunity. Maybe there's a number of businesses together. So listen, I'm happy enough if they want to come in. We'll give them a hearing.
Yep. They do. CF, I think, do represent a significant body. So you're absolutely right. Any other views?
So I would echo that. They were in with us probably just before you started, Chair, and maybe very early September, or else towards the end. Was it very early September, Michael? They were in last in with us.
The CF will be
CF. It was fairly recent anyway, so I think it would be useful opportunity certainly to to hear from them directly on this particular issue.
Sorry,
no, I was just checking where we were last in.
You flick through that, and I'll tap dance. So look, my view would be, as previous speakers have outlined, the wastewater issue is impacting not just on our rivers, although it does, but also it is impacting on house building and wider infrastructure. So that is a significant matter. My view would be concurrent with the committee that I think we should invite CEF in and hear what they have to say. And as Cal said, give them a hearing. Are members content with that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll do that, and we'll schedule them in. Page 202, response from Cycling UK to committee core requesting further information on concerns regarding the active travel budget. Just to make members aware, PAC is not considering the Northern Ireland Audit Office report on active travel, and this committee therefore is free to consider that matter. I'm conscious that we have a couple of members who are on this committee and also on PAC. In terms of that, Michael, and taking that forward, should the committee wish to have a look at that active travel report, do we have to do anything else? Do we have to write further to PAC and say we'd like to see this, or is it free at this point in time?
No, it's free. So PAC have decided not to engage on that report. Okay. So we can, if members want to, invite the department in to comment on the conclusions of the report.
Okay. So I'm happy to pitch that to members. Do we want to invite the department in to consider the active travel report.
Yep.
I'll take Cal first, or
Oh, no, Chair, I would agree with that because I mean it's. I know people are talking about cycling and everything, but it's much broader than that. I think let's have the department in, let's have a discussion. We are in PSC, so we know we've handed this report over. Couldn't say it previously, but and I have made that decision, so I'm happy enough.
okay.
Yep, yeah, happy, and just to say that audit office report was pretty stark, so I think it does need spoken to.
So are members content on that? In that case, what we will do is we'll invite the department in to discuss that at some point, and we'll get that into again the forward work plan. At page 208, there's correspondence from a member of the public regarding the Strangford Lock ferry service. Again, it's a fairly specific complaint, I guess. I don't want to hamstring the committee that we always just sort of say, well, look, we don't deal with individual cases, and I've been on record to suggest that, but again, I would say on this one, we probably would need to go back to the individual and suggest engaging with local MLAs on it, and if they have no success, you know, they can write back into the committee with how far they've got on the issue. I think that's probably as far as we can get on that. Are members agreed on that one?
Chair.
Yeah. Okay. There's nothing else that I picked up, so my suggestion would be to note the rest of the core. Our committee,
Just
Michael?
one from the table pack.
Oh.
There, it was from the Walk Wheel Cycle Trust. There's an event in the Long Gallery, but it's the same time as the committee meeting.
right.
It's on active travel. It's sponsored by Peter McReynolds.
Big decision for Peter then as to where he goes to if the fellow's
Sorry,
off.
what? I'm just trying to wait for my papers to open up. What time is that at?
It's actually 11 till 12, so it's up to members. And so we have one oral briefing scheduled in for that day. So it's whether members want to have a committee meeting till 11 and then go to the event, or whether if there's compelling business for that day, whether members simply just have the meeting and send our apologies. Yeah. Obviously, Peter will need to go out and.
I mean, if we could do, I mean, we could go for 50. You know, we could take a recess for a few 15 minutes or whatever, and go over and back in again. I mean, it wouldn't be. If we can do that, if it's late business on that day.
Nothing's ever light at Infrastructure Committee.
That's why I said it was late business. It's just you said there's one briefing, Chair, and today is going to be the measure and the one briefing.
It will. Okay,
But,
I'll take other.
If it is, I would suggest I wouldn't mind going over to it. To be honest.
Okay.
Andrew? I think that's actually quite a good suggestion, not least because I haven't thought of it, so it's always good. So that's always good. But on the business, it is there's, I can't remember. I did look at the forward work program, and I think it was I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry, brain fog here, but there was business that day that was quite important, just from my looking at it. But so maybe certainly an adjournment or a recess.
Important business every day, Chair. Just for me.
I know, but I was
Good, Cathal.
Just for members' information, Chair, developer contributions for wastewater infrastructure, so DFI was going to come in for that.
I did think
We had penciled in October monitoring, but if there isn't going to be one, then that briefing won't take place. So
Okay.
I think we have correspondence back to suggest there won't be October.
not yet. We wrote last week
Yeah,
to
we're still
the Minister of
waiting.
Finance.
Pretty sure I saw that somewhere, but maybe not in this. Other members have any views on that option, which is I'd be reticent to sort of just stop committee for an hour. You know, committee should have precedence, and these are big issues and obviously important ones. However, what we could do is along the lines of what Cathal and Andrew suggested, which is a break, effectively for 15-20 minutes, so that we don't, we're not ignoring any business, but we're just taking a break. It'll extend committee a little bit, but if members are content, maybe we'll go with that option. Are members happy enough? Yep. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so that takes us to item 7, which is a performance update from DVA. The witnesses will come in. I would point you to page 211, the clerk's memo on this issue. At 216, we have the DVA business plan, Q2 performance update. At page 225, we have the DVA 25-26 business plan. And at page 238, we have their annual report and accounts for 25-26. I want to welcome Jeremy, Pat, and Siobhan to the committee. I need to get committee agreement that the evidence is recorded by Hansard. Are members happy?
Great.
And in that case, I'll hand over possibly to Jeremy to kick it all off. And Jeremy, you're very welcome at committee. It is pretty standard that you can make a presentation of up to 10 minutes, and then you probably will expect some questions from members. But the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'll keep this very brief because I'm sure there are a number of questions that you want to ask us this morning. So thank you for your invitation to attend today and provide an update on DVA services. You've recently received our Q2 progress report against the 25-26 business plan targets, and I'd like to highlight a few key points. Our business plan focuses on 3 priorities: our services, our infrastructure and assets, and our organisation. And I'm pleased to report that all 16 related targets are currently on track to be achieved. Last year we made significant progress in reducing waiting times for driver and vehicle testing. We carried out a record of 1.16 million vehicle tests. This was achieved through a combination of measures, including recruiting additional vehicle examiners, offering tests on Sundays and bank holidays, and increasing the number of vehicles tested by each examiner. These measures and using temporary exemption certificates for certain vehicles help reduce MOT waiting times from around 100 days to approximately 30 days by the end of March. This year our target is to maintain an average MOT waiting time of 35 days or less throughout the year. Currently it sits at just under 33 days. The Minister's decision to extend the use of temporary exemption certificates, along with our continued focus on maximising operational delivery, is helping keeping waiting times manageable until our new test centres at Hydebank and Mollusk open for vehicle testing. Construction at Mollusk is progressing well and is expected to be completed this year. We are also planning further infrastructure development, subject to further consideration and funding availability, to ensure our facilities are modern, safe and fit for purpose. The tender evaluation of our new vehicle testing solution, the new equipment contract, is well advanced, and we anticipate the contract will be awarded later this calendar year. Once in place, our priority will be to open Hydebank and Mollusk for vehicle testing, and then we'll begin the rollout of the new equipment across all our other test centres. Turning to driver testing, waiting times remain around 30 days. In September, we conducted just under 6,600 driving tests, and that was the second highest monthly total since 2009. Our licensing, commercial licensing and enforcement functions all continue to perform well, with all targets on track for achievement. We're also focused on modernising our customer-facing services, with a strong emphasis on expanding online access to make it easier for customers to interact with us. And finally, we remain committed to reviewing our fees regularly to ensure financial sustainability of the agency and to deliver value for money services for our customers. And in that regard, a review of driving licence and fees is currently underway. So very short and sweet, but we're happy now to take any questions.
He loves short and sweet, Jeremy. Well done. You mentioned on the way through, and you might have actually answered my first question because I was getting to the relevant bit on my Surface Pro, and I'm hopeless at multitasking. You mentioned Mollusk, and I think you said it was because I think the target specifies we will complete the construction of our new test centre in Mollusk, but didn't specify a date. I think on the way through, just in your oral evidence there, you mentioned that it would be very shortly. Did I hear you right on that one?
You did indeed, yes. It's the construction of the test centre is nearing completion, and we expect that to be completed before the end of this year.
Okay.
And then as soon as that's completed, and obviously aligning with the equipment implementation contract. Once that's awarded, we will be making engagement with the new contractor to roll out equipment into that test centre, and it clearly obviously can't open operationally until such times it's equipped with the new equipment from that contract. So we anticipate, and again a lot of this will depend on the engagement with the new equipment contractor, a lead-in time of somewhere in the region of 6 to 9 months.
Okay, so if I was following you right on that one, it'll be built this year, then there'll be some engagement. Is that a tender? Is that a full tender? Where are you in terms of the equipment implementation stuff? Is that something that you would foresee happening next year? I suppose I'm heading towards, when do you think there'll be a car going through there and getting checked?
Yeah, well, I mean, Pat can provide more detail on the equipment contract because he's leading with that in terms of the evaluation team, so he can provide more detail. But yes, we're well advanced on the evaluation of the tender documentation, and we're hoping to award the contract this calendar year, and then we'll get into immediate engagement with the new contractor with regard to Hydebank and Mollusk and equipping those test centres with the new equipment.
Okay, it's not putting Pat under any additional pressure here. Pat, when are we going to see a sort of vehicle rolling through Mollusk then? What do you think in terms of where the tender is and how long it'll take to put that in place?
Well, we've just completed the evaluation of the tender documentation, and the site verification visits start very early tomorrow morning, when we will be going to the most advantageous tender who we've already identified.
Okay.
And we'll be viewing the equipment in situ at locations where it is currently operational, so that we can verify that the equipment actually performs to the specification that was set in the tender documentation. And once we are satisfied that it does that, then we will award the contract to that contractor.
Sure.
There is a small standstill period of 10 days where that decision can be challenged. And as soon as the 10 days passes, and I think it may be 8 days, it's been changed to under the new regulations. As soon as that passes, then we immediately get into discussions with the contractor, and within 6 weeks we have to agree the programme which will roll out the equipment to Hydebank, Mollusk, and then the equipment being rolled out to the remaining test centres. What I hope to achieve with the contractor is that we will agree a minimal viable product for the opening of the Hydebank Test Centre. So we'll do what is essentially the bare minimum to get Hydebank opened. We'll then circle back to Hydebank at a later date and update the software and any equipment that needs to be done. So I don't want to put an actual date on when Hydebank will be open.
I noticed that in your very clever answer.
But I would be hopeful that there will be a car going through the Hydebank Test Centre before the summer of next year. Wow.
Okay. Well, look, that's useful. I was going to give you an option of 6 months, a year, 3 years there, but I think that answers my question.
I think I wouldn't have a job if it was 3 years.
Okay, right, okay. Again, this has been hand-sorted, so you have to be careful with these sort of things. Look, the next issue I just wanted to raise, and I'm very cognizant that when witnesses come to committee, you know, it's about finding holes in their evidence, and sometimes it can get a little contentious. There's something I picked up, and I just thought it's more or less just, well, I'll just read it out. It was Annex A, key performance targets for 25-26. And it says, for our customers, we will apply to 97% of Stage 1 complaints within 15 working days and 97 of Stage 2 complaints within working days. I suppose I nearly read that and thought, is that what you deliver? Because that is astounding customer service, so that's a case. But it was really just to get a sense, is that a target? Or is that what you deliver, I suppose, is really the question. I don't know if you're madly flicking through to find your business plan 25-26 and Annex A, but I think I've read out to you what those things are. Is that what you're currently delivering, or is that what you aspire to?
Well, that's what we're currently delivering, and 97% is the target. We don't have much wriggle room to drop on that. I mean, last year I think we received somewhere in the region of 670 complaints. that went through the two-stage complaints procedure that we have, more sitting in the stage 1 complaints that is looked at and replied at the business area level. I sign off all the stage 2 complaints as the chief executive for the organisation, so yes, I do see them, and I'm very pushed by my customer services team to ensure that I meet those deadlines. So yes, those are the actual performance to date figures for at the end of September.
I suspect some ALBs would have cut their right arm off to get those figures, and it's worth just noting that that's impressive as a sort of front-facing organisation that's dealing with a lot of customers. I would imagine, I don't know if you have the figures of how many people go through, for example, test centres, but I would imagine it's quite a few every year. You're going to have a guess at it there, Jeremy, you look
I'm
like?
not going to guess. No, it's somewhere in the region of 2 million customer transactions we would have in terms of driving tests, vehicle tests, driver licensing transactions, so it's a significant number.
It is, okay. So it's just a note. I saw that and I thought that's very impressive, so well done on that one. Final area that I have is something that actually came through my own constituency office, but it applies to Northern Ireland in its totality. So I thought it was something worth raising with you. And Jeremy, you did write out to me recently on this. So it's just for clarity and then a little bit more understanding. And it's quite a detailed issue, so I hope committee members will bear with me on this. So in the correspondence you sent to me, Jeremy, am I right in saying that, and it's about drivers and disqualifications and licensing, just for other committee members, but that'll become apparent in my line of questioning. If a person is disqualified from driving in the Republic, but normally resides in the Republic, the RSA, which for committee members is the Southern DVA, doesn't send those details up to our DVA. But if that person is normally resident in Northern Ireland, they will do that. So if somebody goes down there and gets caught and gets disqualified, the details will come up. Am I okay on it so far?
Yeah, there is a bilateral agreement on mutual recognition between the UK and Ireland, which came into force on the 1st of August of 2017. So the licensing authority down south, as you've advised, is the Road Safety Authority, and we are the licensing authority in Northern Ireland. And that, I suppose, the terms of those driving disqualifications, if someone from Northern Ireland is caught or disqualified from driving in the south, then there should be a mutual recognition and vice versa. Mm-hmm. But there are some nuances and some challenges. Driving licensing, as you appreciate, is complex. So if a person who lives and resides in Ireland is caught in Ireland with an Irish licence and has no residency or indeed no Northern Ireland driving licence, then the disqualification will not be captured under that mutual recognition of agreements. So if someone then later moves into Northern Ireland, then they can apply for a licence and the disqualification wouldn't necessarily carry through.
Yeah. So that was a very useful answer. So essentially what you're saying there is somebody could be disqualified in the south but move to Northern Ireland, or perhaps be driving around Northern Ireland, but we would have no way under that agreement. It's not a criticism of DVA, because obviously you're operating within the law, but there's no way to capture that. That's correct, fair enough. I suppose my next question is, and again, it's more for information, I'm sure I should know the answer to this, but can someone hold 2 licenses in both jurisdictions?
No, they can't. No.
They can't, okay.
Someone in the south could drive in Northern Ireland on their southern licence. If they then became a resident in Northern Ireland, then they would have to exchange their Irish driving licence for a UK or a Northern Ireland driving licence.
So if someone had a southern licence, they could come up to Northern Ireland and drive based on that southern licence, and they could drive for a long period of time based on that southern licence. Is that right? I mean, is there an understanding there in terms of, as long as they may have 2 houses, say, so they have a house in Dublin and a house in Belfast, they could come up to Northern Ireland and drive around based on that licence?
They could, but if they were disqualified from driving on their Irish licence, they cannot. They have no entitlement to drive. They cannot drive anywhere. They have no licence.
Okay, that's fine. I had just one more question, which was, I'm gonna read out a paragraph that the Minister sent to me, and you'll probably be aware of this from your core, and she sent this to me very recently, again on this issue, and it's just to get, maybe really to get your view on it, or for you to sort of explain it, because it is quite a complex issue, and I know committee members are probably wondering where we're going on this, but I'll just read out this paragraph from the Minister. In considering an application for a licence, the DVA may consider any relevant disqualification, including those ordered by a court in Northern Ireland or GB, but imposed under the law of an EEA state. However, where the disqualification is imposed under the law of an EEA state and does not fall under the terms of the Mutual Recognition Agreement, it is only relevant where the application involves the exchange of an EEA state driving licence for one issued in Northern Ireland. In all other cases, the disqualifications imposed outside of this jurisdiction are not relevant to a person's application for a driving licence. I mean, can you explain that back in slightly more understandable terms, Jeremy? Can you have a go at that?
I can, certainly. At this point in time, I regret that the Director of Driver Licensing isn't sitting here, but I will give you the benefits of my understanding.
Okay.
I think the point I think it was set out in the Minister's correspondence as well, was at the point in time, it's at the point in time of disqualification that the mutual recognition instrument comes into effect. However, when we receive an application, and in this case we're talking about an exchange of a driving licence, so if someone moved from Ireland to Northern Ireland and wanted to exchange their licence, then we would check to see if that licence had been disqualified, if there was any reason for us not to then process that application. But we cannot take into consideration a disqualification that could have been reported or may have been reported under mutual recognition, but wasn't because it didn't meet the terms of that agreement at that time. So at the time of the disqualification, that person was neither resident in Northern Ireland nor held a Northern Irish driving licence.
Okay. So final question, then I'm going to hand over to the next. It looks like it's Cathal here. If someone's driving in the south and holds a licence in the south and is disqualified in the south, and then they come up to Northern Ireland and think, I'd quite like a driving licence up here, and they apply for one, would their disqualification be captured under the legislation by DVA?
My understanding is to say, if the disqualification applied at the time to a southern licence, yes, that information would be captured and would be, in the context of the mutual agreement, would be reported to us and we would create the record. But if the person didn't have a licence at all at the time of disqualification, that information would not be sent to us under the mutual recognition of disqualifications.
So that's very useful. So I think what you're saying there is, if someone's driving really, really illegally in the south and perhaps doesn't have a driving licence and is disqualified from driving despite them not having a driving licence, so we're talking about someone who's extremely dangerous because they're driving without a licence anyway, and they are disqualified in the south, it's possible that information wouldn't be captured by DVA in the north, and they could in theory then apply for a driver licence up here and perhaps get one. And again, it's not critical of DVA, you have to operate within the legislation here, but would I be right in saying that that is possible?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's great. Look, thanks very much for that, and apologies to committee members whose heads are spinning and wondering what on earth all that was about. But I think it's useful clarity in terms of some of the issues that certainly I'm looking at. I'm going to hand over. Thanks very much, guys. I'm going to hand over to Cathal.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much for your presentation. You're welcome back. And always remember, pot pressure's only for tires. The chair was the 2 points I want to pick up on, and obviously you've answered the mollusk issue. See, in terms of the biennial consultation we've done, and I know there's no conclusions arising from that. Just want to get maybe add to or respond. What's the main themes arising from that consultation? If you can expand on those, and also if we were to introduce it, what impact that would have in terms of capacity and pressures. Do you know what I if we were to go down that route. You may not
Okay,
be
well, I suppose firstly and foremostly, Cathal, the consultation's been taken forward by the department and not by the agency. And I believe that you are scheduled for a briefing before Christmas on that matter. Yes, we will certainly be feeding into any impact it's had on us in some respects. We already see that with the temporary exemption certificates for 5 and 7-year-old cars that are in play at the minute, we have biennial testing for some categories of vehicle. So from our perspective, the impact on us financially, we have a finite capacity across our test centre network at this minute, which will obviously increase when Hydebank and Mollusk come online, and we will hopefully ensure that those test centres are fully operational with a sort of minimum capacity across the 2 centres to test an extra 200,000 vehicles. That will also require us bringing in the additional vehicle examiners to provide that service for us. But at the minute, because of the demand for the services, we have sort of reached the saturation point across the 15 operational test centres that we have, so it isn't really having a significant financial impact on us at this point in time. Longer term, of course, we would have to look at that. We would have to assess and monitor the impact in terms of those additional examiners, the cost of those additional examiners, the additional tests we're doing, and we would have to monitor that in terms of reviewing our fees at a point in time, which we did most recently in October 2023. So we just have to keep that under control. But one of the big challenges, I think, for us to meet the demand for testing, not just the infrastructure impact, is the recruitment and retention of vehicle examiners. That is becoming a challenge which we've mentioned here before.
I appreciate it, and I really, obviously the department, but you've given the full analysis of what you think yourself, and you'll play that part in that response. The other point is, and can you talk about the taxi industry or in relation to the driver?
Try, depending on what issues there are, yes.
In terms of, you may not have the figures in terms of the driver badges, numbers, and cause my context is obviously there's challenges out there for the industry for us. And my first question is, how many driver badges have been handed out? Can you give some figures based on that? And also, and that's why I asked you, can you answer? And my second part of that question is, how do we try to encourage them back into the industry itself? So, and that's why I asked you first. I lined up the question first just in case you mightn't have the detail.
Yeah.
But in terms of the numbers, how many badges out there, and what we can do to encourage people, because we are getting it. You know, there's challenges out there within the industry, you know, to encourage it. You know.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I don't want to give out a figure. I know that the numbers of taxi driver licences issued has been in decline for some time, and I think it has sort of plateaued in around just over 7,000, but I qualify that figure. All that information is available in the official statistics that are published, and I think the most recent publication in September, so the tables are there. Cathal, and we can provide you with that afterwards. Obviously we're responsible for the licensing and enforcement of the industry, and we don't have any control in terms of the numbers that come into the industry and the reasons why. There's elements that we touch on in terms of the theory test, for example, and you know, that's the test that taxi drivers have to do to come into the industry. We're not really, to be honest with you, from an enforcement and from a compliance side in the agency, getting a much kickback from the industry at this stage. Our enforcement teams are working very well with the industry, doing taximeter tests, doing nighttime economy enforcement operations, which have been well received from the licensed industry. We've talked here before many years ago about parrot taxis and the problems that create, and we're very alert to those issues, and which is why that some of the enforcement targets that are identified in our business plan are focusing in some of those areas. But yes, that ongoing issue of how do you attract more drivers into the industry is one that we can't really influence too much as an agency, but I suppose our job is to ensure that the industry is compliant and there's fair competition, I suppose endorsed through the approaches that we take.
I appreciate it, and that's why I lined up the question where you could answer in the first place, but that's it. But I think we have a job work to do, and I appreciate from your stance, it's just as a committee, and we will get it from time to time. There's a challenge there for us, but like I said, if we knew the numbers and knew what we could do, but Chair, I got the answers for now. But okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cathal. Harry.
Thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, you covered a lot of my questions, Mollusk, Hydebank, and the completion dates and the opening times. But maybe on Hydebank, I would like you to tell me a wee bit more about. It's been talked about for a long time. And why such a delay in the opening of Hyde Bank?
Pat has lived and breathed this for the last number of years, so I'll let Pat respond on that one.
Technically, Hyde Bank is open and has been open since April 2024, and we've been conducting driving tests out of Hyde Bank since then. The part of Hyde Bank that unfortunately we haven't been able to open is the part which would be used for vehicle testing. And you may recall we were in contract with a company, Worldwide Environmental Products, who were to supply, install and commission, calibrate the equipment along with the associated software and hardware for the Hyde Bank Test Centre. That contract wasn't successful, and we were unhappy with the performance of the company, and we terminated the contract with them on the 9th of October of last year. That was the company then took out an injunction against us, declaring the termination unlawful. We were due to that hearing was due to be heard in January of this year. It was adjourned on a couple of occasions, and then before the hearing was due to be heard in February, their Worldwide's council approached us and asked if we would consider a negotiated settlement, which we did, and we terminated the contract by mutual agreement. From our perspective, we did everything that we could humanly possibly do to assist Worldwide to complete their obligations under the contract, and they were unable to do so, hence the termination of the contract. And we're now in the latter stages of completing the new contract with a new supplier, and as I said earlier, I'm hopeful that we will have the Hyde Bank Test Centre open before the summer of next year.
Okay, so we could just follow on. Using Worldwide, was this just for Hyde Bank? That's not used for any of the other test centres?
It was due to be used for all of the test centres, so that contract was for Hyde Bank, Mollusk, any new test centres that we were considering building, and also then the rollout and replacement of vehicle testing equipment and IT software and hardware in the remaining test centres. So that contract in its entirety has been terminated.
And did that mean changing all or most of the equipment in Hyde Bank?
Part of the settlement was that Worldwide had to remove the equipment that they had installed. It was our view that that equipment didn't meet the specification and or wasn't safe to use by our staff. And so as part of the settlement, then they removed the equipment and returned it back to Spain.
Okay. Yes, very good, thank you. If I could move on, Chair, a wee question on the biannual. I know Cackle teased out a lot of it, but any evidence on the operation of biannual testing in other jurisdictions and any corresponding impact on the roadworthiness of vehicles or detriment to road safety?
I can provide some response to that, Harry. Yes, biennial testing is used in a lot of jurisdictions throughout Europe. Yeah. And indeed in Ireland. Now the department will have more detailed information on sort of the pass rates. We can really only comment on the information that we hold. We do know that we are looking at those vehicles that had been issued with a temporary exemption certificate and now come back into the testing arena after 2 years. And surprisingly, at least anecdotally in the initial evidence that we have, the pass rate has actually slightly increased when they come back in after 2 years. Now we're possibly considering surveying those customers to see, well, what was your attitude to MOT testing during that period of time in terms of servicing and maintaining your car? Did your attitude change? But there hasn't been any great detriment in terms of the pass rate for those cars returning. Now, bear in mind these are 5 and 7 year old cars, which are pretty fresh, and if they're looked after, they shouldn't present a problem. And the pass rate for that group of vehicles is very high generally. But it was interesting as we start to look at those figures coming back in that it doesn't seem to have had a major impact in terms of the overall pass rate.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Harry. Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, folks, for coming in again. I know it's been a wee while since your last here, and it is good to hear some of the progress that is moving the right way. Just around the additional measures, I think they're welcome, staff recruitment, TECs and so on, and we've pushed for years in here to reduce appointment times for testing vehicles and drivers. The temporary exemption certificates, I suppose I'm trying to establish, are the temporary exemption certificates now permanent?
No, they're not. We obviously had to write to the Minister at the start of this year, and given some of the issues with the delay in opening Hyde Bank and Mollusk, we advised that strongly advised that we should extend the use of temporary exemption certificates to keep those MOT waiting times at a manageable level. But clearly we'll have to review progress in the new year in terms of the opening of Hyde Bank and the opening of Mollusk, and the additional recruitment of vehicle examiners to hopefully move away from the use of temporary exemption certificates. Certainly that is the intention and the plan. Now the timing of that will very much depend on our engagement with the new contractors and when we'll get Hyde Bank and Mollusk opening. Those exemption certificates came into effect from the 1st of June. They will start to expire on the 31st of May, and because there's a 3-month book-in window for lead-in to MOTs, we'll need to make that decision probably in Q1 of next year and advise the Minister of the position in that regard.
Yeah, and will the TEC decision be linked in any way with the biannual decision, or are they separate?
No, they're entirely separate.
And just on the biannual piece then, what input will DVA have then on any recommendations that will go to the Minister on the back of the consultation?
Well, the recommendations will be presented by the department, and they will probably, and they have asked for similar questions that were raised by Cathal about the impact on us financially, and that will very much then depend on the costs of additional examiners, the new equipment, etc. And we would have to factor that in terms of, as a trading fund, we have to recover our costs through the fees we charge our customers. So it may well involve us having to review our vehicle testing fees if biennial testing were to be introduced. But that's a big if, and that's a matter that's still
I know it's outside of your control, but is there any indication of time frames on that decision for biannual?
I'm not in a position to comment on that. That's a matter for the department.
Just on the contract issues, appreciate it's been going for some time. The new contract then, does that include the management and social maintenance and upgrading of the other 79 lanes?
It does indeed,
well,
and I say our focus will be on Hyde Bank and Mollusk, and then once we're satisfied that the equipment is working in both those test centres to our satisfaction and to the requirements of the contract, then we'll agree a rollout plan with the contractor to replace the existing equipment in the remainder of our 15 test centres. Okay.
Another issue just was highlighted recently was around missed MOT appointments. Quite alarming figures really. 36,000 I think were missed last year, which is quite a significant number. Is there any measures or thoughts on that, on how I suppose that can be reduced, which ultimately does impact on availability of slots for everybody ultimately?
Well, I can certainly provide some input, and Pat might want to add some things on the back of that. Yes, it is a constant frustration for us given the pressures that we have. That I think actually the figure last year was, and I'll quote so that I'm not misquoted, I think it was closer to 50,000 in the financial year, and that stayed pretty constant over the last 3 years, and we've seen a noticeable increase in that since pre-COVID. So we have done steps. We've obviously introduced new booking and rostering system, and we have a reminder system that's been built into that. Now in July 2023, it used to be you opt in to get reminders, and now we've switched that around, so you actually have to opt out if you don't want to get a reminder. So by default, you will get a reminder 2 days before your MOT is due. We also surveyed the customers that were failing to attend, or a sample of the customers that were failing to attend, and there's a variety of reasons. The vehicle's not ready, there was illness, there was other commitments came up, so there's not a consistent message as to why that's happening. And I suppose the MOT fee still represents pretty good value for money. It's £38. So people are prepared to lose that fee if they can't attend the appointments. That said, we're also looking at the legislation dictates that there's a 1 clear working day cancellation policy in place. So if you cancel your appointment, you have to give 1 clear working day's notice. Because we've moved to a much more digital system, and it's much the demand for appointments is high, we've reduced that from the start of this month to a 4-hour cancellation period to help customers if they want to cancel their appointments, and we'll monitor that closely over the next number of months to see what impact that has on FTAs. I think the next We'll probably not see the outcome of that until Q3, and to see how that's impacted on waiting times. But it is something that we're keeping a close eye on. Unfortunately, it is to some extent out of our control.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And the average time is still around a month then, 30 days. Yeah.
It is around that, yeah.
Which
So
is
our
a-
business plan target is for the whole year is to try and keep the waiting time on average below 35
Which is a
days.
good improvement on where we were certainly a few years ago. And just the final thing I would say, and I think we said this the last time, I think it is a better experience for people now too when your crew do come out and take the keys from people and you know ultimately do the test. I know certainly I think that is an improvement on the really overall experience for for car users. So I would commend you on that. I think that works certainly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, man.
Well, just on that, I always miss the abject humiliation of being in a test centre and the guy says, "Will you open the boot in my wife's car?" And I have no idea where the boot release lever is. So you've certainly saved me from that in the change as well. Andrew,
You take those figures as well, Jeremy. I should write that down, but
That's one of the
there's a bit of
benefits.
learning there.
one of the benefits.
People thought they were being tested rather than the car.
Absolutely. Andrew.
No, yeah, thank you. My van went through last week as well, so I'm very pleased at that. It's always one of the most stressful days of the year, not going to lie. Like,
What figures were Logan here on top?
but sort of on that, is there a trend to the sort of the general roadworthiness, and I suppose maybe is there common areas of non-compliance, or are there specific areas that actual vehicles are failing on that again a public awareness campaign might help in or whatever?
I thought you would ask that question, so I have a table prepared on the most common failure reasons in the last 3 years. We actually answered an FOI request on it quite recently. The last 3 years it hasn't changed. The top 8 are the same, and I'll list them quickly: suspension system, body chassis, fuel exhaust system, engine transmission system, electrical systems, brake tests, and wheels and tyres and hubs. And then the last 2 are headlamp tests and steering system. So there is a commonality in terms of the issues that are coming up at the test. The overall test pass rate has not really changed. Last year it was 81.5, the year before 82.5, the year before that 82.4. So it's staying pretty much 1 in 5 cars that present for test would fail.
Just sort of, is that, do you think, people just going along and getting it tested, knowing full well that it's not right, but then obviously, and how does that affect the road safety trends, do you think?
Jeremy alluded to it there in terms of the fee for the MOT, and that the fee at £38 is still very good value for money for someone to make the decision that what I will do is I will go along to DVA and get them to give me a list of the things that are wrong with the vehicle, list the defects, and I will go and get those defects fixed, and only those defects fixed, and then present the car for retest, and the car will pass the MOT. The MOT is not a guarantee nor a warranty. It is a moment in time when that vehicle meets the minimum standards as set out in law for road safety and environmental conditions. That vehicle could be on-roadworthy several days later. For example, your tyres may just be above the legal limit when it's tested, but at that point in time they meet the legal requirement, but they could be below it several days later. What our vehicle examiners look at is whether or not it meets the minimum standard. A mechanic will look at the vehicle in a completely different way. A mechanic will look at the vehicle in the context of, will that component last until the next service? And if not, what other damage will that component do to the vehicle in the meantime? Or what impact would that have on the road safety of the vehicle? So they're two completely different things. It's trying to get across to people that you need to ensure, as the owner, keeper of that vehicle, that it is your lawful responsibility to ensure that that vehicle is in a roadworthy condition at all times, not just on the day it goes through one of our test centres.
Thank you. Just there's a section there on the driver licences and the fraud that's been highlighted. I mean, has there any safeguards been introduced? How was the previous fraud identified, and how many licences were eventually there, and what's the cost been to the public?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that it is a question that's come up before. and it's an ongoing investigation, so I can't really comment anything further on that at this stage, but suffice to say we did receive a report in September 2024 about an allegation that a number of candidates did not sit their driving test and satisfy a competency to drive, but then were subsequently issued with a driving licence. That was investigated internally through the anti-fraud policy and fraud response plan, and then based on that, on the trained investigators within the enforcement section of the agency, based on their evidence, that was then reported through to the PSNI, and we are now working closely with that in that ongoing criminal investigation. So I don't wish to be invasive, but as that investigation is ongoing, I can't provide any more detail.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Justin.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Siobhan, Jeremy, and Pat. Jeremy, we soldiers together many years ago for Queen's GA. Is that the right Jeremy Logan?
I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Oops.
I went, Justin, if it's any help, I went to school with a Jeremy Logan. I mean, were we in school together, Jeremy?
I don't know what Hansard can record this in it, Jeff.
I'm not sure either.
I didn't think there were that many of us about, but yes.
No, that's true. Go ahead, Justin.
Jerry doesn't remember me from one day to the next.
Lack of memory, though.
Apologies. Jeremy, the average MOT waiting time of 35 days, is that consistent across test centres, or are there some test centres performing better than others?
There are some variations. That's across the network as the average waiting time, but yes, some test centres will have slightly longer waiting times and some will have slightly shorter, so that is the average. And the waiting times fluctuate, depending on resources and availability at each test centre, so you might find some on any given day. I mean, Pat has and analyses these reports with monotonous frequency to see, and we will move examiners around the network where we find a test centre, for example, is under pressure and waiting times are moving out, whereas another test centre is performing well below that target. So it is a continuous effort to monitor the situation, but in answer to your question, it's right across the board.
What is the current processing time for a full driving licence?
The full driving licence, and I suppose this is a slightly it depends question. If it is a straightforward driving licence, which we referred to in the businessman target update, we are turning those around within 93.5% for based on Q1 performance for a postal application, and for an online driving application, we're turning those around 99.1% within 5 days. So they've been turned around. Where it becomes more complex is if there's medical issues that have been declared, and therefore those matters may need to be referred to our medical advisors for assessment. We obviously have to assess that a person is fit to drive, medically fit to drive, before a licence can be issued. And because people are driving for longer with more complex medical conditions, those medical assessments can take quite some time. So we have KPIs with our contractor that in initial assessment of the case, it's 14 days, and the contractor is performing well on that basis. But that initial assessment may then require further information from GPs, or may require further specialist medical assessments or a driving assessment. So it can depend based on the medical conditions that are identified as part of the application.
Sorry for flipping back here. In terms of MOTs, the little old lady whose MOT has expired or is expiring in the coming weeks, and she can't get her into her test centre, and she's worried that she can't continue to drive. Is there a Sesame Street simple flow chart which tells people what the timelines involved are and when they are eligible to continue driving? Is there a graphic which can be shared by us on your website which shows to people what the actual timelines are involved and when they are eligible to continue driving or otherwise?
Well, we issue a courtesy reminder 6 weeks in advance of the MOT appointment, and in that there is a small A5 leaflet that it identifies the scenarios in those situations. For example, if you're concerned that you can't get an MOT date before you get the car taxed, because you need to get the car taxed, then it identifies a process that you should follow in terms of requesting a short notice appointment, and that has worked very well for us over the last 18 months, and we're not really seeing as many of those coming through now because the waiting times have sort of settled down. So the information is contained in that advice leaflet and also replicated on NI Direct, but I'm not saying that things can't be improved, and we could certainly look to see if there was anything more. We try and keep it as simple as we possibly can, in line with the format that goes on NI Direct. So the information is there, and it is receipted, and received by each customer in advance of their MOT booking.
I would add to that, Justin, just to reinforce the procedure that we do have in place with the, we've worked with the PSNI and the British Insurance Bureau in this, that as long as you have an appointment with us, you can continue to drive the vehicle. And if you're asked to produce that by the police, you'll have an email or a printed copy that you have an appointment. Now, setting aside what Jeremy's just said about tax, we will need to have the vehicle taxed, and we do have the short notice appointment. But once you receive your reminder, book an MOT appointment. Once you have that appointment paid for and a notification from us of the date and time, test centre in Lynn, then you can continue to drive your car until that vehicle is due for test.
The condition I would add to that is that the
In a
PSNI and the insurance are insisting, as we are, that the vehicle must be in a roadworthy condition. That remains the vehicle owner's responsibility at all times.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the procurement debacle, what has been the cost of that debacle to the departments from a time perspective and from a financial perspective?
Well, we identified that in the annual report and accounts under the significant issues in terms of the cost. Pat advised of the negotiated settlement of £1.5 million that was agreed, and that essentially terminated the contract. And then, as part of the auditing process in the accounts last year, then they looked at the other constructive losses that we had incurred since this contract was awarded in March 2019. So over the last 7 years, that was estimated to be £3.6 million, and a lot of that was to do with staff costs, legal and professional fees, and delays to the contract for Hyde Bank opening, in terms of obviously things had to be put in place because the test centre was designed to be equipped with the worldwide equipment, so changes had to be made throughout the construction project. So that's how that has been broken down.
So 5.1 million cost to the
5.1 million.
department.
And that would have come directly from DVA Trading Fund money.
In terms of the driver licence fraud piece, obviously we can't go too much into detail because there's still ongoing proceedings. Just a frightening development. I think we all recognise the advantages of AI. I think we all embrace it in terms of our own lives and work where appropriate. But has there been an AI risk management audit being completed from the department in terms of a process of systematically identifying, mitigating and addressing the potential risks presented by AI for fraud, which might potentially impact the DVA?
Not so much AI at this stage, but we do have a number of fraud controls in place across our systems, and we've actually invited internal audit in to deliver anti-fraud awareness training for all our staff, and that's well underway. It has been delivered to all our test centre teams and will be rolled out across the rest of the agency. We have a number of controls and are constantly monitoring patterns, behaviours, pass rates of examiners right across the network to see if there's any trends. Unfortunately, things do happen, and then we have to see if there's any lessons that we can learn to sort of close some of those gaps. I've also identified that in our audit plan this year, our internal audit will come in and look at the controls we have in place and give us their assessment of adequacy on the controls to see if there's anything else that we can do to tighten up those controls to prevent these types of things happening again. But these are being closely monitored, and I say it was through the efforts of our trained investigators that identified and were able to put a very comprehensive case and deal with the staffing issue very swiftly and put a comprehensive case to the police to investigate. And we will support them throughout that investigation, and if any further lessons are learned, we will certainly take those on board.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Harry, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, just a short one, Chair. Thank you. I know you say your waiting times average 30 days, but I must admit, under your credit, if I needed an MOT today, tomorrow, if you're willing to drive, not go to your nearest centre, generally you can't get one, so that's always very good. And just another comment on your testing equipment. I know you talked about people maybe rocking up in their car not checked for MOT. A mechanic with Jack is never going to find what you guys find. Your test's very stringent and very good, and when a vehicle passes the MOT, you can have confidence that's a good safe vehicle. So appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Harry. I had one last question, and then that's us, folks. It's just to do with your target 13, and it's just to read it out for you, probably flicking to it. We will achieve the trading fund financial target to break even, taking 1 year with another. And obviously, you've highlighted that wasn't achieved, and it was due to, I think, the removal of the resource subsidy funding from the department at a quantum of just about £500,000. In terms of the removal of that resource subsidy funding, would you describe that as planned or surprised by the department?
I think under the conditions and the financial position in 24, it was an exceptional circumstance, and subsidy funding has been restored for this year, which is good news. I mean, in terms of the impact on those targets, when we couldn't possibly break even when we have, I don't know what the figure was, Siobhan. We'll have those figures to hand. It was more. It was
no. The £500,000 is what we actually did receive in funding. The funding shortfall was 7.8 million. Which,
was quite significant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you, Jeremy. You were
I was just saying it was quite a big number. So once you take 7.8 million, and then that's coming out of the trading fund, we were never going to meet the two financial targets that we didn't meet last year. Yeah,
I understand that. You mentioned in your answer that that's been restored for this year, has it?
It has been. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's useful, thank you. Folks, that's it. Thank you very much for coming along to committee this morning. It was a really useful session, certainly from my perspective. We the committee may have some additional questions, but we'll have a chat about that. Cahill?
No, Chair, I'm surprised Harry didn't ask about classic vehicles when we did.
Who's here?
I had a page prepared on it, Harry, because we've had discussions about classic vehicles, vintage vehicles for some time.
Right, okay, the Hansard's finished.
Some poor soul in DVA had a whole 2 pages on lines to take on classic car equipments, and we want to apologise to that person.
I moved away from productivity from Keith to go to vintage vehicles for Harry.
Okay, look, thanks very much for coming in, folks. That was really useful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Never a dull moment for Hansard in this committee. Okay, so are there any items that I thought there's a useful session. Are there any items we want to follow up on, or anyone have anything outstanding that we want the committee to write to get further detail on? I will bring Michael in a second in case he's noted any. Harry?
I would like to request a visit to Hyde Bank for just to see around.
Okay.
If we could do that, either for myself or any other members of the committee that would be interested.
I think that's fairly easy to expedite. We'll check. I imagine they'll come back and say yes. At that point, probably we'll have a quick chat about whether, because I don't think necessarily everyone may go. Some committee members may go, but could be, I think maybe an optional visit. But Michael, if you're happy enough, if committee's happy enough to write out to DVA and ask them that, I assume that's okay. Do other committee members have anything that they want to raise in light of that, or any additional information? Justin?
Just that graphic I mentioned. I think it's one we can share, and it's useful for the little old ladies I speak of.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. Michael, was there anything that you picked up on the? Oh, sorry, Cahill.
I know just the 2 points. Obviously, on any more information on the buy-in and the testing. If we didn't pick up, I know that they're saying it's the department, but they will be the main contributor to that process. And also, I do get contacted about the taxi industry. That's why I left to give them an opportunity, because I didn't know whether they have information or not. The number of applications for license. I know he said it might be on site, but maybe just a wee bit of clarification on that, because we from time to time we're getting anecdotal evidence of what's going on in the industry, especially around the city. So we need to just find out on while it's not their responsibility, we need to look at ways of encouraging that, because especially coming up to Christmas now, in the period of time, you may get challenges there, but it's not a bad thing to ask the question anyway, Chair. Yeah.
No problems, Cal.
Cheers.
We got that one. Michael, is there anything additional that you picked up on the way through?
No, those are all the things I picked up. Just that for a visit to Hydebank, there's a number of options. So the sort of nuclear option is that the committee goes as a committee on a committee day. The other one is to arrange a visit on a different day that members may wish to go on. And so, if like the chair or the deputy chair and any other members wish to
Committee
go.
day, yeah.
So that's the committee day.
A committee day, okay.
Before it opens, Chair,
Before it
Michael,
opens,
you know, because we could really see around, and it's not to find fault, it's just to see new equipment, how it's going to work. You know, we'll have the opportunity.
We'll come back to the committee with possibilities for that, dates and format.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, that's super. Members just agreed to do that. So happy enough? Yeah. Okay. So we'll move to item 9, which is a forward work plan. Going to take members to page 408, where you will see the forward work plan. Just to let members know that Northern Ireland Water are coming into us back to us on the 26th of November, and that will be a more general discussion rather than just so the last one was pretty general too, but this one will be probably more to do with wastewater, financial accounts, etc.
So that's the 26th, did you say?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just to add to the
Yeah. I wasn't sure, I was confusing myself.
No, that's fine. Does anyone have any comments on the forward work programme? That's okay. Certainly, we're going to have we'll have a discussion in closed session regarding the environmental scan and so forth. So that'll inform perhaps, more detail around that. I just need committee's agreement to proceed with the evidence sessions as currently scheduled. Are members agreed? Okay, excellent. And then item 10 is AOB. Does anyone have any AOB? I don't think so. Item 11 is to seek agreement for the next meeting to take place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 5th of November, 2025 in room 29 of Parliament Buildings. Are members agreed? Yep. Okay. So, anyone who is watching the session, we are about to go into closed session. We'll be doing that to take some legal advice on the A5 and the extent to which committee will discuss matters surrounding that. We will also then be looking at some evidence, an oral briefing from RAISE. So I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of why we were doing that. But I think we can now move into closed session.